Hello, thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to go through the 2023 budget for next year. As everyone saw in my email, the assessments are increased 4% for next year. We're going from $300 to $313 per month. If you're on auto draft, the CAMs will automatically increase that amount. If you use online bill pay, please adjust the amount starting in January to the $313 per month. And if you're mailing in a check, it's that new P.O. box in Las Vegas that you should have received some communication about. So I just want to thank the Finance Committee and the Board of Directors. We started the budget process back in June of this year, and the Finance Committee and myself met several times before recommending the budget to the board. And then the board spent several months going through it, making some changes and finalizing the budget that you're seeing here today. So we start with the expense side. Obviously, we have to zero it out to have a zero balanced budget. And then we back into the assessment amount. So you can see line item 4,000. The first column is going to be the budget for this year, 2022. And then in the middle column is the actual money that's been spent for the first 10 months. This report was run at around early November. So you have 10 months of actual dollars here in the middle. And then the third column is going to be the budget for next year, the 2023 board approved budget for next year. So there's 731 homes that are all closed, and at $3.13 per month, your assessment income is going to be 2.7 million here in this column. So jumping down to the next line, the replacement reserve fund. So we use that replacement fund reserve study done by reserve advisors to guide us on this. The engineers look at all our assets and tell us how much we should be saving every year. So for this year, 2022, they wanted $258,000. You can see we've already put in $351,000. So we're a bit overfunded this year. Back in May, the Finance Committee recommended and the board approved moving an extra $136,000 that we had in surplus operating, and we put that into the replacement fund. So we're just a little bit overfunded, but part of the reason we want to do that is in your operating checkbook, you don't make any interest income, but you do in the money market reserve replacement fund. So, and also the reserve fund study factors inflation at 3.5%. Whereas, as everybody knows, we're closer to 8% right now. So wanted to get ahead of the game a little bit for the inflation factor. So for next year's budget, we did factor in $268,000, the exact amount that the study recommends. Jumping down to working capital, we no longer will have working capital in the budget for 2023. This is the new member fee. The first buyer that buys from Pulte pays, per your governing documents, 12 times the monthly assessment. So that is going to be, for this year, $3,600 that all the new buyers paid in at closing. So we were under budget a little bit there. We actually brought in close to $114,000. But now we're all built out. We won't have that income going into the operating fund for next year. We'll also lose any developer contributions next year as Pulte has turned it over. We budgeted $83,000 to zero out the budget for this year. They've actually given the association $171,000. So a bunch of that was aquatic plants, some dead trees along Carolina Orchards Boulevard, and also there's a property condition assessment. We had an engineer come in, look at the grove, and just like you do a building inspection for your house, came up with a list of about $65,000 in repairs that were needed that the association had done, and then Pulte refunded us for those repairs. So that's part of your income. And then you jump down to a little bit of late fee money. After the 15 days, you get 15-day grace period to pay your monthly assessment. And then on the 16th day, there's a $20 late fee. Street light reimbursement. So we do have 202 street lights that are on the public street and sidewalk. The town actually refunds us $16 per pole every month. I will send in an invoice to the town, and the town manager refunds me $3,200 and change every month. So that does help offset the street light invoice, which we'll get to here in a little bit. A little bit other income, you have facility rental. So we doubled the budget there. You can see we've already brought in close to 9,000 through October. And this is 10% the instructors pay for, really it's a room rental fee, like the tennis pro, the pickleball coaches, anybody fitness, Laura Faye Fitness. So they contribute 10% of their gross, what they're bringing in as part of the room rental. Or if a resident rents one of the rooms, maybe the ballroom for a private party, there's a fee for that as well. And then the lifestyle program income. This is really a pass-through. Out here, we're a pay-for-play. So for example, you paid $25 to go see Too Much Sylvia. That comes in an income, but then we'll see here in a minute on the expense line item that Laura will pay the band with that money as well. So you know, we're more events now after COVID, so we bumped that up to about 70,000, and you'll see the expense down below, which is 75,000. So we do have a little cushion there for maybe a few free events, but we do try to break even with that line item. All right, so now our number there is the $2.5 million. So we need to zero that out down here with the expenses, of course. So getting into the expense side of this, IT support. So you can see we jumped that up quite a bit from 2,000 to 8,600. And part of the reason for that is we're going to have some new expenses with Comporium for next year. We have that bulk TV deal, basic cable. So out of your $300 a month, $8.50 goes toward Comporium, the bulky basic cable TV. So that contract, it was a 6-year contract, is expiring in June of next year. So that will expire. They're going away from the coaxial cable, and you know, they're going to streaming. So I know there'll be some questions about that. The IT committee has been working with Comporium, and they're going to come up with some frequently asked questions and hopefully have a town hall meeting to kind of explain that more in detail. But we did have to bump that line item for another Wi-Fi grid and some other equipment that we might need next year, because we get some free services along with that bulky agreement, like the channel 115 is a free service. We get free Wi-Fi currently up here right now from Comporium, and free TV throughout the building. So those freebies will be going away when the bulky agreement ends in June. Jumping down to license and permits. So this line item is for your pool permits. The Department of Health requires permits, as well as Sirius XM, the music up here that you hear at the Grove. And if you bring in live music, believe it or not, you do need a license for that. So we have to have a license that covers that also. Moving on down to insurance, we were over budget on insurance, 34,000 this year. We just met with the insurance agent, the board, myself, the insurance committee, and even taking on the sales center, that was about an extra $2,000. We're at about 25,000 for next year. That's your property, your directors and officers insurance. We do have a $10 million umbrella also. Then we have legal expense. We don't have any delinquents out here, and we really haven't. No one's been more than 30 days late, which is great news. But we do need to go to general counsel sometimes for some opinions on different things. So you do have to have a little bit of legal money budgeted. Office supplies, any equipment that we need for the office, any Zoom meetings, Sign Up Genius, that's all covered there as well. On-site personnel, so that's your full-time staff up here. Besides salary, it is also your burden. It's taxes, insurance, that sort of thing. We dropped it a little bit for next year because we have, Brittany's salary went away, and we brought in Laura Miller. Other administrative expenses, you're going to have some postage envelopes, check stocks, mailings, welcome packs, that sort of thing. Taxes. Now, this is going to be income taxes. We haven't had to pay any income tax out here, and the CPA that files our taxes can usually write off anything like that, so we don't have to pay income tax. You do not have to pay income tax on assessment income, the $300 a month that everybody pays, but any facility rental, that other income you do, but we're able to usually write that off. But just in case, I leave a little money in that line item. Then you have property tax. So we had to increase that a little bit from 13,000 to 16,000. We took on the sales center. I did just get the bill for that, and it's about $2,500 a year for to add on the sales center. There's a whole stack of invoices I get for each parcel of property that we have out here. So it's about an inch thick of bills that I do receive, but it amounts to about $16,000 for next year. The website, that's that Lifestyle Link website that we use. The audit review and tax prep. So the Finance Committee did interview 3 different CPA firms and decided to switch to a different CPA firm to do the audit this year and the taxes. So we saved a little bit of money there. You can see a few $1,000s. So the audit's $5,000 and $600 to do the taxes. The Finance Committee and a few board members and myself did meet with the CPA. We had a clean audit. We went through and we asked questions, and so that was done recently. That audit is on the website under the document section. Leasing expenses. So that's going to be your copier. It includes the toners, the service, the maintenance, and we get a certain amount of pages that we stay under every month. Professional services. So we talked a little bit earlier about the replacement reserve study by reserve advisors, and we're not doing that. We didn't do it this year, and we won't do it next year. When Pulte was here, we did do it about every year just to make sure we were still fully funded and there weren't any issues with our major assets. So we'll probably start doing that every 3 years is the plan, because it is quite costly, even an updated study of about $7,000 when you do that, but it is important. And then management fees. So your management companies will charge you per door usually. So you have 731 doors. CAMS is at $4.60 per door. And it's a good price. I've been doing this about 18 years, and the going value is between $5 and $15 for single family homes per door. This covers your back office, the accounting, all the other services that CAMS provides. Then going down to general maintenance, this is for your common area, any maintenance in the common areas. So we did bump that up a little bit to $8,000 next year. Signage, this is any signs that we need in the community. We don't want to put up too many signs. Sometimes then they're not effective, but we do have a little bit of money in there for signs next year. Asphalt and sidewalks. So we have a little bit of money in there. The streets and the sidewalks out there are going to be public, which is great, but we do have a private parking lot, and the extra wide sidewalks around the community are the responsibility of the association to maintain. So just recently we did fix a couple of trip hazards on the sidewalks here around the Grove. And if there's a pothole or something in the parking lot, we'll need to address that. So a little bit of money there for that. The bigger money, maybe a seal coating of the parking lot. We do that probably every 3 to 5 years, and that's in that replacement reserve fund, and that's up to just about $1.4 million right now. Moving on down to the retaining wall inspections. So we budgeted $6,500 for next year. And we have miles of retaining walls. Some are very large, and it's very important that we inspect those every year. So in April, Summit Engineering comes out and they look at all the walls and they give us a nice report of any issues that they're seeing. Obviously, we don't want to have any erosion. They tell us if there's trees or shrubs that are too close to the wall. So usually I'll get a list of some vegetation that needs to be removed. And this year we did have to replace a couple of blocks in the walls, but otherwise everything is checking out just fine. Then we have the pond maintenance. So you can see we're over budget quite a bit this year for the pond maintenance. And really the big number there is because Pulte gave the association $40,000 to put in the aquatic plants. So the wet ponds, we have 10 BMPs or ponds, but they're really stormwater retention basins. they're required by the town when the developer, starts the property and the development. So 9 of the ponds have stormwater pipes that feed into them, from the streets. And so if there's any gas or oil that come with that, it'll sit and it'll filter in the pond. And these aquatic plants help filter anything out of the water before it'll go eventually to the creeks and the lakes. So they're very important. And so besides the aquatic plants, we won't have those again next year. So 70,000, we feel comfortable with that. It includes the Solitude Pond Company's monthly maintenance. So they come out and they look at all the BMPs. They check the risers, the overflows, check for any beaver or muskrat damage, any erosion. They take care of any invasive weeds or cattails, make sure there's no woody vegetation that's growing, and give us a nice report every month. And then the town also comes out about every year and kind of looks at them as well, just to make sure you're keeping up with them. So our plan is to have a bush hogging company come twice a year, typically in October and June, to weed whack and bush hog around the ponds, just to kind of keep the vegetation from getting out of control. But you do want to have some ground cover there to help with erosion. But we feel pretty good about that number there for next year. Then you have the water feature maintenance. That's the water wheel. So we dropped that down a little bit. We do have two contracts that take care of that wheel. We have ponders, and they check the water quality every month. They also check the 2 pumps. You have 2 pumps that keep that water flowing. There's no motor that runs the wheel. It's just the water that hits the flumes on the wheel and turns that. So you have the pumps. And then you have another company called Icon that comes out once a month and makes sure the wheel is greased. There's a little device out there that keeps the wheel greased. I know before I started, they had the wheel locked up probably 5 years ago, and they spent between $16,000 and $20,000 taking the wheel down and fixing it. So, you want to make sure the maintenance is kept up on that. Then pet station supplies. I know it's a lot of dog bags, but we don't want to give owners any excuse to not pick up the pet waste. So we have plenty of stations and plenty of bags, and we thank everyone for picking up the pet waste every time. Snow removal. We did have an event last year, so it's not going to cover much, but we have a little bit of money for if we have to apply some ice melts around the grove. Obviously, we don't want anyone slipping and falling, so be very careful. But a little bit of money for shoveling and ice melt around the grove. Then we jump down to landscape repairs. So we have $85,000 again budgeted for that. That's going to include 1 air rating for both the common area and the single family homes. So with this hard clay Piedmont soil, you need to break it up at least once a year. And that's what we like to do in May and June. Helps to get that water and that fertilization, the nutrients down into that soil. The best turf is going to have the best soil. So it starts with good soil. So that's very important. And then any erosion issues, if we need to add riprap, it's that shiny gray rock to help with erosion or dead plants and trees. We have money there for that. The grounds maintenance contract in the common area. So we do have a 3-year contract that holds the price with Brightview. So 2023 will be the 3rd year of that contract. And so we're getting a great value both with the common area and the single family homes. You can see we paid $45 a month still for the single family homes. But they do have a 1% fuel surcharge. So I did round it up a little bit, but still getting a great value. I know the landscape committee works with Brightview and myself and Greg every week. Every Tuesday we meet and we discuss any issues. And I think we're getting really good value with Brightview. In January, we'll be sitting down with the general manager and some supervisors at Brightview and looking at extending the contract and talk about pricing going forward. We do have a 30-day out and they have a 60-day out, but right now we do have a good relationship with them and landscaping is always going to be your biggest complaint in a homeowners association, and they're never going to be perfect. I know they've struggled with labor and the cost of chemicals and fertilization. So I think we're, like I said, getting a good value at this point. Irrigation materials. So we bumped that up from 10,000 to 15,000. You know, you have 150 zones out here. There's going to be heads, controllers, decoders, main lines that break. For those simple things, we take that out of the operating. If we have main line issues, you know, we have big pipes that run under the berms, and if we do have a main line break, you know, sometimes we might need to take that out of the replacement fund. You know, that $1.4 million that we have saved for the different things, for the assets that are going to need to be replaced or repaired going forward over the next, you know, 40 some years. Then the pine straw in the common area. So one thing we're doing to try to save some money this year, instead of 2 applications of common area pine needles, we're knocking that down to just 1 needle. So that'll save a bunch of money. We're still going to do 2 for next year in the single family homes, but you know, we're looking at that. We're going to see how it goes for the common area next year, and then maybe make some adjustments, but 1 needle next year for the common area. And then your annual flowers. So the landscape committee works hard on an annuals to perennials program. So we're trying to make the flower beds smaller, get rid of some beds that you know, you really don't see that well, and save some money eventually with just perennials, adding some color at the medians in different places. You know, we did that along the medians here on Carolina Orchards Boulevard. You know, the muhly grass is getting a little bit high. We'll be hacking that down here soon as the color starts to fade out of that grass. Then we have interior pest control. So that includes just making sure there's no ants, etc. around the grove. We added the sales center to that for next year. Pool maintenance. You know, I talked to my colleagues, and the pool companies are all increasing their rates. So pretty much about 24 to 25% across the board. So we work with Carolina Pool Management out here. They do a great job for us. You know, just their cost of labor and especially the chemicals has really gone up. So they had to pass that along to us, that increase. So you know, we do shop that out, and right now that's the going rate for pool service right now. They've struggled the last 2 years, just like landscapers, with labor and the cost of their materials. Landscape service for the amenity, we break this out. So we added the sales center is the increase there. So 41,000, that'll cover the entire grove here for that service. Jumping down to fitness equipment. So we were lucky that Pulte had actually bought all that equipment in there, so we don't have a lease. So that's really great. But we do have quarterly maintenance on it. Grayson Fitness comes out every quarter and does the preventative maintenance. They check out all the machines, and then if there's any repairs needed, like we just had to replace a control board, you know, the monitor panel for one of the sit-down bikes that get used a lot. So that goes into this line item as well. Again, in that replacement reserve, we do have money set aside for replacing equipment, you know, during certain years. I think this year they had it for 10 pieces of equipment that were set to be replaced, but COVID slows things down a little bit. You know, Greg checks the mileage on each machine, and we keep up with that. We did replace 3 machines last year, totaled about $20,000, and we got a little bit of money back on the trade-in for the machines that we did trade in. But you know, we're pushing back. We don't need another 7 machines replaced, so we'll move that back a year or 2 for any replacement equipment. Trash removal, we do have 10 trash cans in the trash corral there behind the tennis building. The town picks those up every Monday morning, so we have to pay for that service. General maintenance of the amenity center. So this is going to be any repairs here at the Grove, or we added now the sales center. So that's why that jumped up for next year. Janitorial supplies, paper products, toilet paper, wipes. If you're using the fitness center, we love it that you're using the wipes. Just don't use more than you need. Wipes are very expensive. Those gym wipes, 1 should probably be sufficient. Cleaning of the amenity center. We bumped that up to cover the sales center. We're going to be cleaning that 3 times a week here next year to start. In December, we're using it for overflow, holiday parties for villages and things like that. So trying to use it a little bit before the construction starts next year. Then we have the pool supplies and repairs. So we bumped it up a little bit. This is going to be your pumps or your motors. You never know when some of this stuff is going to break down. But umbrellas is in that line item as well. So we do go through about 10 umbrellas a season. You know, we buy decent umbrellas, but if you're up at the pool and you're leaving, crank that umbrella down if you would. I know the storm and the winds can come up quick. You know, the staff keeps a close eye on any dark clouds and weather. We run out to crank those umbrellas down, but we appreciate the assistance if you can help crank those umbrellas down. The fire safety system, that's going to be your annual inspection. You know, we do have fire sprinklers here in the Grove, and you have to have an annual inspection. Some repairs sometimes are needed, and then there's some monitoring for that. Miscellaneous income, I don't like to code much to miscellaneous. One thing you notice why it's so over budget here, 18,000. I talked about that property condition assessment. That's where we had the engineer come in, tell us, hey, there's $65,000 of repairs that you need to do at the Grove before you accept it. It's a carryover from last year. Those repairs I put in this line item just to keep an eye on it and kind of make it easier for me to track. So that's why we're above that for this year. We shouldn't have that next year. Electricity for the amenity centers. So we bumped that up a little bit to take on the Grove as well. There's some street lights. We talked about 202 street lights on the public streets, or soon to be public streets. We have 22 street lights here in the parking lot and then around the Grove that we're responsible for, that the town does not refund that $16 per pole. That's included in the meter here at the Grove. Then the gas for the amenity center. So we probably were a little high on our forecast for the gas. We've only spent $18,500 through 10 months. So we dropped it a little bit, and then we're taking on the sales center as well. We started getting those bills here last month. So it costs about $1,000 a month to heat that the pools. We have 3 heaters, you know, one for the indoor pool and one for each spa. So obviously the outdoor spa is shut down now, but the gas pays for those things, as well as the heat, obviously, in the buildings. Then you have the water and sewer at the amenity center. Again, we're taking on the sales center. So there's one water meter, and it's at the sales center. So for the last 6 years, Pulte has been paying all the water, which is great for obviously the sales center, but this building as well. And the pool, I've probably drained the big pool outside twice and filled it back up. But I know that's at least $2,000 every time you do that. So, but we're having to take on that now. So we're calculating about $15,000 for the water and sewer next year. Telephone, internet, that's for your office phones. HVAC, so we have over a dozen HVAC units here just at the Grove alone. And it was a rough summer. It was hot, and we had some breakdowns for the compressors and some of those units. So we bumped this line item up quite a bit for next year. And we do have some preventative maintenance, semi-annual service for those units. Access control, that's going to be your alarms, your photo IDs, the door repair. And I think one of the best things we did, and Pulte paid for those front door sliders, it was about 10 grand, because we were having constant repairs for those doors that would open by the hinges, and just not a great system. But I think the sliders have worked out great. We actually ordered a slider for the sales center, and that was about $12,000. And that should be installed next week, is what I'm hearing here recently. So good news there. Then you have the pickleball, tennis, and bocce courts. So we bumped that number up a little bit to $10,000 for next year. That's going to be any repairs to the courts. You know, you have to refresh the clay on the tennis courts and any other repairs that you need. Lighting, you know, we wait a little bit to fix the tall pole lights out there at the courts, just because, you know, when you get a company to come out, they have to rent a lift, and, you know, that's at least $500 just to rent the lift. And then, you know, the field trip charge. So we wait till about a half dozen or so are out, and then we get out and repair those. I know there's several lights out right now that TMT will be getting back out to replace. We've ordered the heads to get that done. Landscape extras. So that's going to be your weed tech, arborist recommendations, your plant growth regulator. Your biggest complaint's always going to be landscape, as I mentioned, and weeds have been a big issue out here. So last year we put some more money down for a weed tech, a dedicated weed tech that has his own weed machine that you see him going around the homes in the common area, and it's really helped. I've had people come in and bring me bags of weeds into my office, and I haven't had that this year. So I know it's making a difference. It's looking a lot better. It'll never be perfect, but I think the weeds have been more under control. The nut sedge isn't as prevalent as it has been in the past. So, and also the plant growth regulator, phase one, maybe was overplanned a little bit, or the plants are just getting bigger now. So we're trying to slow the growth down. We're trying to keep them healthy with that plant growth regulator, slow things down, because it is expensive when you have to start cutting down trees. Unfortunately, probably our largest tree, that oak in the York roundabout, was struck by lightning this year, and it did not make it. We tried to save it, but we had to spend $5,000 just recently cutting that down and grinding the stump, as well as some big trees at the dog park as well. So you have to have some money to do that sort of thing. All right, so then you have the amenity center hourly staff. That's the front desk staff. So you can see we actually dropped that down over $20,000. And the reason for that is last year I used to have a supervisor of the front desk, and I didn't replace that position. So I'm wearing a couple hats with that, and Brandy's stepping up, and Scotty and some of the other gals, and we're doing fine. But it covers a possible 5% increase as well. So we sit down and give everybody reviews, and you get to between a 0 and 5% increase after the reviews. So are saving some money next year on that line item. Amenity center equipment replacement. This is going to be any miscellaneous things that might go down. We do have audio visual things for the ballroom, projectors. So a little bit of money there for that. The dog park, we do have a beautiful dog park. Any repairs or improvements to the fence, adding riprap, sod, adding some new crushed granite. There's some money there for that. Lifestyle program expenses, we talked about this above. We're trying to zero this out every year, and Laura's doing a great job with managing this budget. The income we project 70,000, and then the expense is 75. So there's a little bit of cushion there if we want to do some free events and that sort of thing. Greenway membership. So this is a 10-year agreement. So we have about 4 years left on this, but for your $300 that you're paying, $6.60 of that every month goes toward the Greenway. So I do cut a check to the Greenway. So please take advantage of that. It's a beautiful Greenway. We as your membership, you pay about 60% of the going rate. So we get a little bit of a discount. In 4 years, the board will talk about that contract, just like we have been with the Comporium Basic TV as well. So then you have some telephones. These are the red emergency phones. So we have 4 of these now. You have to have them for the pools, obviously. And then there's one inside the fitness center. And then we added one for the pickleball courts. We've had a lot of accidents out there. Please be careful when you're playing pickleball. We hear a lot of injuries out there. So take it slow. And there is a red phone out there. You pick up the handle, it goes right to 911. There is a defibrillator at the tennis building as well. So if that is needed, there's one in the grilling pavilion. There's one in the hall across from the fitness center, and then one at the entrance to the tennis building right there as well. Utilities cable. So this is that basic bulky TV agreement that's expiring in June. Okay, so we're letting it expire, and it's not going to renew. Comporium is getting rid of the coaxial cables, so everything's going to streaming. So as I said, the IT committee will be having some more communication on that going forward. But so we dropped that about in half right there for next year. Electricity for the common area. So we dropped that down a little bit the way things have trending. So this is going to be your small electric meters, dog park, tennis, pickleball. Then we have electricity at the street lights. So you have 202 street lights on the public streets or soon to be public streets. And so we get about 40% of that back from that $16 a pole from the town. Electricity at the water feature, it's not just the water feature. We do have a meter there that covers the lights around that whole corner. So we separate that out. Electricity at the entry buildings. So we do keep the electricity on there. There's some floodlights that help with some extra lighting. And then water and sewer, we spend $1,600 probably for water sewer there. We do keep the restrooms on, and we have hose bibs there. We need that for landscaping sometimes. Then you have the water irrigation. So I've been out here just over 4 years now. When I first came on, I noticed the year before we had spent $90,000 on water irrigation. So we do have rain sensors on most of the systems. There's about 150 or so zones, and there's a couple that don't have it, but they work pretty well, and we're not overwatering. You know, we keep a pretty close eye on that. So you can see we spent $24,000, so we're going to be under budget a little bit on that. I will get a couple more irrigation bills coming in because they're about a 2-month lag on those water bills, but that's why we did leave it at 50 grand. I know that maintenance capital improvement committee will be looking at maybe the possibility of adding a well or two to help with some of that in the future. So that's one thing they'll be looking at. And then finally, we added a new line item this year. It's the capital improvement line item. And so I just mentioned the maintenance capital improvement committee. Another thing they'll be looking at is any capital improvements. So this 30,000, they'll have a list of priorities, and they'll make a recommendation to the board on what maybe something new to spend money on. You know, for example, I hear about we need more shade at the pool, or we need more shade at the pickleball courts. Just different things that aren't a current asset, so they would not be covered in that $1.4 million replacement fund money. But this would be some seed money for something new. So they'll be looking at that. So as I mentioned, we're almost up to 1.4 million in that replacement fund. And the finance committee does a great job laddering CDs. I know we had just bought another CD because one had come up, and we got a 4.75 12-month rate. So rates are going up, and it's great. We're able to add more income, and so we're laddering all that money with CDs. So just to give you an update on the sales center amenity bucket, so we're up to almost $282,000 for that sales center amenity center retrofit. So that's all that money that Brittany had brought in, and now Laura Miller is bringing in with that sponsorship. You know, the platinum level, the gold, all that advertising that for the newsletter and all that. So we're going to keep bringing money into that every year. Usually December, January is when that money hits. And then, of course, we talked about that new member resale. So we had mentioned the first buyer that bought from Pulte had to pay that new member fee, that $3,600 this year. So all the resales also, per the governing documents, have to pay that new member fee. So at closing, if you as an owner choose to sell the home, your buyer has to pay the 12 times the monthly assessment for that. So this year, obviously 300 times 12, it's $3,600. That'll be going up next year. But all that new member fee, now instead of going into the operating account, goes into a reserve bucket. And it's not earmarked for anything at this point except for avoiding a special assessment. You know, there's some things that could happen, not to scare anyone, but maybe a hurricane comes through and takes out all our trees. There's no insurance coverage for that. So that would be something that we would have to fund. And so that bucket could help with that, for an example. But anyway, so that's the highlights. Again, we're going from 300 to 313. 4%, which is not bad in this day and age with everything going up so much. So appreciate everyone tuning in, and have a great week. Thank you.